Masterclass. I want to start by thanking Dr. Joe Obata for making this possible. Sir, are you here? Yes, you want to say something? You want to welcome your people before we start?
And I'm there. Now waiting. How about there?
Okay, so please kindly mute your microphones. Okay, you're muted. Let me unmute you. Ask to unmute. I think you can unmute actually.
Okay, yes, I've just, well, I couldn't until you gave me permission. So, Dr. Obichi, it's good to see you again. Warm greetings. First of all, Dr. Obichi, you will need to know that our acting Vice Chancellor is one of those early participants who are here.
Oh, amazing.
So I must welcome the acting Vice Chancellor. And I think you should also give me permission to maybe say a few words. Since it's here, you know, I don't need to say much again, except to welcome all our colleagues. I know that several others are struggling to join us, and they will definitely join us in the course of this lecture. I want to thank you very much for your magnanimity in you know, availing yourself to do these pro bono lectures. This is what I have been looking forward to, you know, initiating, but I was looking at how to deal with the cost aspects and until you came up with your willing to give it free for us. So I thank you very sincerely. So I want to welcome the Vice Chancellor. Please, you may wish to say a word or two to your colleagues and to the resource person, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pata, for arranging this. Thank you for the initiative. I've always known that you are very resourceful and very proactive. I want to thank the resource person who is here with us, especially as he has agreed to do the lecture pro bono. As a university, we are very grateful for that. We want to believe that our colleagues and many of who are already on this call will benefit maximally from this. Thank you very much for this gesture.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Obichi, the floor is yours. You see, I had to keep vigil. It's 2 a.m. in China, so.
Oh, in China. Oh.
All right. So, Dr. Obichi, please carry on.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, the acting Vice Chancellor of the University of Cross River. Thank you so much for even being here, President Professor Stephen Ochang. I appreciate your presence. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Joseph, for making this possible. Good evening, everyone. I'm just excited. I'm very humbled that you're here this evening, despite your tight schedule, this being on a weekend. That shows a lot, you know, about your drive for knowledge and your desire to make something out of the research efforts you've been involved in for years now. Tonight, it's going to be about 90 minutes of discussion. We're going to be having a very interesting discourse on research. You know, you've been doing research for quite some time now. Nobody's supposed to teach you anything around research. However, we're going to be coming from a perspective that is very critical. And that is the aspect of doing research for impact. I want to kindly ask that you all mute your microphones, please, so that I don't get any disruptions from the background noise. Okay, good, excellent. Tonight, we're going to be discussing research for impact. We're going to be discussing research commercialization. We're going to be looking at some interesting perspectives to translating your research for purpose. Okay, so I began this journey of research commercialization for some years now, actually about 3 years, fully. When I designed the first research commercialization program for Tech Fund in 2020, that was actually in 2021, so it's 4 years now. And over the years, we've trained, it's 3 years plus. So over the years, we've trained more than 500 lecturers across all universities and polytechnics in commercialization of research. And it's interesting to note that people that have gone through our program, they've gone back to their schools, they've initiated something, they've started doing research for the right purposes. And we also see that there are roadblocks to that. You know, we teach research commercialization. People go back, they're not also able to commercialize their research. I've been studying this, and it's interesting what is coming out of this. That is what we're going to also be discussing tonight. But I want to share with you something very interesting, that research commercialization is very possible. Thank you to those that have sent me DMs directly saying, you know, asking questions. We're going to look at those questions. Sorry, I'm going to have to mute everyone. Okay. Okay, excellent. All right. So I want to share a good news to you. The point is that research commercialization is very possible. That is just the good news I have for you this evening. Is very possible. If you would decide and make every decision to say, I'm going to henceforth commercialize my research, or I'm going to henceforth do research that is targeted towards impact, then I won't promise you it is possible. What I say is not out of maybe what I read in a textbook or something. It's something I'm living, I'm practicing it, and I'm seeing it around the world, as a matter of fact. So I know this is very possible, and we're going to be looking at it. And I want to ask you to participate by dropping your questions. If you have any questions, please, by all means, go to the chat and drop your questions. And I would ensure I touch on every of those questions before we end tonight. Okay, I'm going to just get into it. What is research commercialization? Now, this is the process of turning research results, turning your research results, innovations, intellectual property into products, processes, or services that can be brought to market. In other words, if you're someone that is involved in research, those research efforts, the results that emerge from those research can actually be brought to market. That's the simple definition. Now, it is the process of converting technological advancement into economical value through identifying the value drivers that define purchasing decision, right? So the missing link has always been for lecturers to identify value drivers in their research. That's just what I realized. They're not able to identify the value drivers. Therefore, they're not able to define purchasing decision or achieve purchasing decision in the sense that the markets will demand what they have, demand their research outputs. I'm going to have you excuse me in a moment to on my light. Okay. All right. So, sorry about that. Now, the point here is that in research commercialization is very important because it's crucial for economic development in Africa, in Nigeria. I usually say that how is it that our research efforts do not get to the market for the most part? Most times the research we do as Nigerians, as African researchers, don't actually get to market to solve our many problems. And this is a problem. We see that most of the challenges we have in Africa, we have in Nigeria, have continued to be. I mean, these are problems that our great forefathers witnessed while they migrated to Nigeria, right? Those problems are still with us. Those infectious diseases that they met are still with us. Those issues of lack of, potable water and all of that, they are still with us. Simply put, a large chunk of the responsibility lies in the fact that our researchers have not stood up to the occasion of translating their research. We have the desire to publish in high impact journals. Our goal is to see that we get promoted from our research efforts, but that is not the primary reason for research. And that is not the primary reason why the universities were set up. The universities are set up to solve societal problems while training people, right? So if you're just training people without solving societal problems, there is a missing link there. There is something that you don't get right. And without fulfilling that purpose, the universities will remain poor. And that's the truth about it. And it then brings us to the question as to why is it that an institution that has the best minds in the society, the best intellectual assets in the society, is broke, right? Why is it that the university cannot stand on itself by itself to solve its own problems without relying on handouts? The truth is simply because you have not been able to harness the intellectual assets that you have. That is the reason. That is the reason. And that's why we're having this conversation. And this is the best conversation to have with researchers at this time. Now, let us get into it. For Africa to achieve economic development, we must be determined, we must be intentional about commercializing our research. We must be very intentional about commercializing our research. And I want to tell you that it is very possible. It is very possible. In the Western world, you find out that for the most part, they have finished solving their problems. They're only creating new ones today. They finish solving their problems, they're creating new ones today because they understood quite, long time ago that their research from their universities are supposed to be directed to the industry, to the marketplace to solve the problems. So I'm just basically challenging you to ensure that henceforth your research purposes are supposed to have a destination. Your research results are supposed to have a destination, which is the market and not the journals. And interestingly, when you are focused on solving real problems in the society, then you even have more quality publications for the journals. That's the truth about it, right? So it's by the time you start focusing on engaging in impactful research, that is when that your research will actually then become very useful for the society and then would also be attractive to big journals out there. So what we're saying here is not that you're not going to publish, but while you publish, solve problems with your research. So you're listening to me, you're undergoing a particular research currently. Question I'm going to ask you is, to what extent is that research solving a problem in the society? Right? you're supervising PhD students or master students. Fair enough. Question then becomes, what problem in the society is that research supposed to solve? That research effort, what problem is it supposed to solve? That is the conversation we are supposed to be having now. Gone are the days when someone gets into a PhD program without the desire, the primary focus of solving a tangible problem in the society. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. So if you still, and this cuts across all fields, actually, not just the sciences, but all inclusive of what the arts, the humanities. This cuts across. All right, so research commercialization can foster collaboration between industry and research institutions. Now, this will yield new technologies and improvements of existing ones. Now, research commercialization can generate revenue for research institutions. This is important. We know that there are some universities in the US that are richer than Nigeria. So a country can actually go to a university to borrow money. It's funny, but that is what it is. Now, these are universities that have come to understand the assets they have and their potentials, and they're able to position themselves toward harnessing all of this. So that's the question: to what extent is your university able to harness the intellectual capabilities and assets of your researchers? Now, I'm going to sorry, I want to check the chat to know if someone is okay. No sound. All right. I believe you all can hear me though, but I'm going to continue because I muted everyone anyway because of the noise that's coming. I believe I'm audible enough. If I'm not audible, please go to the chat and drop something. Let me be sure. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Now, there are challenges. I'm not saying all of this to tell you that there are no challenges. Of course, there are challenges. When we talk about research commercialization, of course, there are challenges. Number one is limited funding for R&D. Limited funding. There is limited funding. We know that. And also, I want to talk about, in fact, some of you have already asked me questions around this, limited funding, right? You've asked me questions around limited funding, and I want to tell you that I know this is a problem. And that is the last thing we're going to talk about this night. So just stick around. We're going to discuss where the funding would come from. Then we look at weak intellectual property laws. Nigeria, unfortunately, has weak intellectual property laws. That's the truth. Some of us that play the active in intellectual property rights, we know the loopholes. But despite the loopholes, question is the researchers themselves that should be active players in IP, in intellectual property. They are not. I want to tell you something. You see, if every university in Nigeria, every public university and polytechnic in Nigeria would have just 10 patents in a year, 10 patents in a year, in 10 years, Nigeria will be one of the most innovative countries in the world. It's fun. Now, this thing I have just said gets you to understand how bad the situation is. It's so bad that Nigerian researchers that are outside of Nigeria have more patents in Nigeria than Nigerian researchers. Let that sink in. Is that bad? Meaning that we don't engage in innovative research. We hardly engage in innovative research. We just do research because we want to get promoted. But that is, ladies and gentlemen, a wrong reason to do research. That is a wrong reason to do research because we want to be, that's selfishness. That is, you're doing it for your own purpose. And that is not right. Research is not supposed to be for that reason. For my sake and me alone. That's not the reason why you have the wonderful opportunity to do research. You do research, first of all, for the society. And it's a beautiful ministry. It's a beautiful platform you have to be a researcher. So the first purpose should be the society. What problem is it I'm supposed to solve for the society to make the world a better place? Right? That is what it should be. You are not going to solve all the problems of the world alone, no, but just take a tiny bit of it and add to it. And not just researching, but making sure that your research sees the light of the day in the society. That is all we ask. So that is a problem, our weak intellectual property laws. But despite the challenges with our IP laws, go ahead and still what create intellectual properties. Now, the next thing is insufficient technology transfer infrastructure. I don't know to what extent your school has really conquered the technology transfer challenges. But let me tell you something. One of the things I'm into these days is to help institutions to achieve technology transfer. The biggest challenge I have seen in institutions is their IP policy, intellectual property policy. Most universities in Nigeria have some kind of faulty, do I say weak intellectual property policy. And this is a challenge. If you want to commercialize your technologies, it's a challenge. So I would ask you to take out time to review whatever thing you have as IP policy for your institution. I've not seen yours, but for the most big universities I've seen, their IP policies, they have some weaknesses that will make an investor not to bring in money into your university. Yes. That make an investor not to bring in money to your university. So that's a challenge. Because I think most of these policies are drafted by lawyers that are not necessarily, technology lawyers or IP lawyers. Okay, now, limited entrepreneurial culture and skills is also a problem, which you can become intentional to improving and igniting the culture of entrepreneurship in your institutions. That's a different whole conversation and lecture. Poor research management and governance. This is where the whole IP thing comes in. This is where the infrastructure, the system of research commercialization in your institution, how robust is it? How robust is it? Your IPTTO, that's your intellectual property transfer office, how robust and enabled is it? Your linkages department, or units. So these are very critical, units that must be looked into if you want to make money from your research purposes. I want to say this. No university should be broke. No university should be broke. In fact, you should make more money from your intellectual assets than from school fees. Universities are not supposed to just thrive on school fees. They are supposed to thrive, first of all, from their intellectual assets. And I say this because I know it is true. I know it is true. And just do a simple Google search now. Just do a simple Google search of universities around the world and how much they're making from their IPs. You'll be shocked. These things is when you don't know that you dwell in that level of ignorance. But when you know, you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked. You make more money from commercializing your IP than from school fees. That is it. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. I was opportune to study, get 2 master's degrees from Israel. And I can tell you that these guys, so the money, much of the funds to run the university are coming from, first of all, intellectual properties and then endowments. So I'm going to ask you to take this so seriously. That's why I'll give you more instances, but let's just move on so that we cover the subject. Someone is raising their hand. Please, I'm going to give you time for questions. So let me just cover some ground before we open up for questions. All right. Now, how do you overcome some of these challenges? We all know about the triple helix synergy. The triple helix synergy framework talks about the universities, that's the academic sector, the academia, the industry, and the government. These three must come together to advance research in any society, right? The universities cannot do it alone. They will need the government, because the government will create the enabling environment. The government will give the necessary support. The government would make available funding, right? And to be fair to the government, I know TED Fund has, it gives you guys grants on an annual basis. In fact, personally, I have won 2 NRFs. The last NRF I won was in this year, 2 months, 3 months ago. So that was the last NRF I won. Now, the other one was last year. Okay, so I didn't win it because I'm in the academia. I'm an industry guy, right? But I'm just trying to let you know that there is money out there. You get up to 30 million to 50 million, all those kind of stuff for your research purposes. Now, the government is trying, but is not doing enough. Is not doing enough. There's so much the government can do. I've just talked about the IP policies. There's so much the government can do. But hold on for 1 second. How much is the academia doing? I don't think the academia is doing enough, right? Let's not even go to the industry. The industry is not there. Is not there at all. It's not there at all. But if I have time tonight, I'm going to also tell you what you have to do to invite the industry to the table. And the University of Cross River can actually set the pace for other universities around the country. How do you bring the industry to the table, right? Oh, good. So let's get into this. Now, the triple helix framework is actually now that's solution to the different challenges we have in research commercialization. That's why I want to bring it up. We cannot discuss research commercialization effectively without bringing the triple helix framework up. The academia alone cannot do it. You alone, you cannot do it, right? You can only have some incremental successes, but for you to achieve so much, you would have to engage the industry, you have to engage the government. All right. Now, what are the approaches to research commercialization? When all is said and done, how do you then commercialize your research? I will just kind of summarize this because of time. I will just summarize it. I can talk on this for hours, but I'll just summarize it. By the way, if you've been receiving my newsletters, I would have actually explained some of this. Now, number 1 is supply-driven innovation. Pay attention to this. In supply-driven innovation, or what we call seed-based approach, what happens in supply-driven innovation is that researchers do research for their own interests. They just go ahead and do their research, right? Now, when they finish their research, they then begin to ask the question as to how can we apply the results of this research to solve a problem in the society? That is an approach. A wonderful approach. It's a good approach, and it is the commonest approach I have seen amongst Nigerian lecturers. They first of all start their research. Is when they finish their research, they begin to ask the question as to how can this research be commercialized? Is this research commercializable? They begin to answer that question. And what problem can this research solve in the society? That is supply-driven approach. I don't know how many of you are engaged in this, but let's hold on. Let me explain the rest. The other one is demand-driven innovation. Now, in demand-driven innovation, the researcher starts by asking the question, what problem is out there that needs to be solved? What issue, what challenges are out there that are within the scope of my research that are not solved today? They start from there. Then they build up research questions with respect to that challenge, to that problem. And then they go ahead to do their research around that. Ask the right questions and design their research around it. And by the end of the day, their purpose is simple: to contribute to solving that problem. That is the demand-driven approach. Needless to say, I prefer the demand-driven approach to the supply-driven approach. I think the demand-driven approach is more effective than the supply-driven approach. For many reasons. I'm not going to, delve too deep into this unless you ask questions later on. But the first one is this. You see, when you don't have a problem in mind from the beginning of your research, the solutions you're going to come up with are not going to be perfectly fitting to solve that problem. That's one challenge with this. There's one challenge with this. And that challenge is that it becomes even more difficult for you to be able to engage the industry. I'll come back to this point. But let's go to the third, accelerated innovation. Accelerated innovation is the kind of innovation where the research is inspired largely by the industry. The industry. You see, so in accelerated innovation, it is the industry that comes to you and says, look, this is our problem. Or you go to the industry and identify a problem that they have and engage them in solving that problem. That is accelerated innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is my, preferred approach to research commercialization. Many reasons why you have to engage the industry, many reasons. Because the industry already has what? The market. They have the channels to the market. They know the market and the problems better than you. And you are not designed as a researcher. I will say this over and over again. You're not designed as a researcher to be an entrepreneur and to go through the whole stress. Because you're a researcher, you're supposed to research. You're supposed to be in the lab. You're supposed to be in the workshop. You're supposed to be doing research. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be lecturing. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Nobody should now see you run around the markets, moving about and pursuing investors. If you're doing that, it's just an extra. It's because you have chosen that way. You have chosen to carry that burden on your head. But there are easier ways. And that is what, when you would engage the industry, you see, life can actually be easy. And let me tell you something. In fact, let me say this at this point. Lecturing is the best profession I know of. I've seen, of course, I'm trained as a medical doctor, and I work in tech now and everything. So I know when I tell you that lecturing is the best profession out there, believe me. The truth about it is that lecturers themselves have not really optimized the opportunities that they have. You've not, right? So that's a challenge. But lecturing is a wonderful profession where that you can make a lot of money and wealth just being a lecturer, being in the classroom. You create technologies, and those technologies will go for you in the market. Right? The other day, I was reading profiles of some lecturers that have developed technologies that we use today that are changing the world. They're changing the world. Drugs and all of that. They didn't stop becoming lecturers. They remain lecturers. The companies took up some of these technologies and ran with them and are giving them, royalties today. accelerated innovation. Accelerated innovation. This should be the primary. In fact, most PhD projects should be built around accelerated innovation. That's how it is. Anyway, all of you, you know that that's how it is for the most part abroad, right? Companies sponsor a lot of research efforts abroad. That should be the way. That should actually be the way. But we've not so much embraced it here. Now, let me talk about social innovation. Now, this is the fourth approach. In social innovation, you look around in the society, find out a problem that should be solved, which the government is not giving attention to, which the industry does not find attractive and profitable, with no clear business model in their head on how it will thrive. You take it up as a researcher. You take it up as a researcher. You work on this and you build a business model around it, right? And that is called social innovation. For the purpose, the primary purpose is not to make money, but to solve a problem in the society. That is social innovation. That's social innovation. Nobody should do social innovation more than lecturers. Because to start with, you already have one of your mandates to be corporate social responsibility. So it then means that you are uniquely suited for social innovation. If there is a problem in your society, the community where University of Cross River is located, what challenges are they facing, for example? I went to speak in one of the very, very big universities in Nigeria, in the north. So when I got there, it dawned on me, in fact, they told me that the community, their host community does not have access to potable water. No access to potable water. Meanwhile, this is the university that has, trained all sorts of people in the country. They have ministers, they produce ministers, and one of the oldest. So you can imagine, right? It's so the question becomes, what is it then that the researcher, what kind of research is going on in that school? It says charity begins at home, right? So this is a challenge. This is a challenge. As a lecturer, as a researcher, look around. What problems can you solve? And when you solve these problems, now you need to understand how to build a business model around these problems such that they will be sustainable. That's all I'm saying, so that they will be sustainable. I'm going to talk about business models for social innovation in my next newsletter. In case you're here, you've not subscribed to it, it's important that you subscribe to it. All right, so these are the approaches. Now, very importantly, make sure that you are engaged in one of these approaches. For any research that you're doing, 98% of Nigerian lecturers are not engaged in any of these I've talked about in their research. I know because I have data, right? The people with train collect data. I can tell you this for free. And it is not their fault. It is simply because they are also not informed about it, right? Because once you get informed about it, some people give me their research topic, I help them to transform that research topic to commercial, purposes or impact-driven purposes. That is the truth. So that you then do your research with a clear focus of contributing to the site. Very important. Now, let me quickly give you a blueprint for research commercialization. Take note of this diagram. Research commercialization will always start with pre-disclosure. Now, this is with respect to someone that is in the university or in the polytechnic or in an institution. It starts with pre-disclosure. Remember, there's something called, we don't have enough time for me to delve into intellectual properties tonight, but there is something called ownership, and there's something called inventorship of intellectual properties. If you're employed by the university, you are not the owner of your intellectual properties. I hope you know that. I believe, that is not in doubt, right? Good. But if you have questions around this, please ask during questions time or drop a question. Now, since you're not the owner, you are simply what? An inventor. You are simply an inventor. Good. Now, you get into what? This pathway. The first stage in the pathway is what? Pre-disclosure. Pre-disclosure is where that you have not disclosed to your institution that you have an intellectual property. Most lecturers are at this point. Most lecturers are at this point. They are at the pre-disclosure. They never even get to inform their institution about what their IPs. In fact, when I go to schools to speak, there is a kind of 3-day workshop I usually have in schools. When I go to do that, I give them a target. We set a goal that in the next 12 months, we're going to triple the number of pre-disclosure of disclosures that come to the Intellectual Property Technology Transfer Office, IPTTO office. All right, good. That's it. That's it. Because most people come down with what? Stay at the pre-disclosure stage. You need to quickly move on toward disclosure. Disclosure is at the point you go to the IPTTO to tell them that you look, I've got what? An invention. I've got an invention. Now, at the IPTTO, they take it on to the next level of evaluation. They give you papers to fill, what we call IDF, invention disclosure form. You fill all of those. Then evaluation happens. There are a number of evaluations they do. Number one is what the preliminary evaluation, where they look at, have you fulfilled the conditions necessary for this to go on to the market and be patented and all that? Did you do this research with a third party? Did you collect money from somebody? They ask you all those questions. Who is involved in it and all that? That's preliminary. The next one they do is technical evaluation or technological evaluation, right? That's the second one they do. In the technological evaluation, they bring in experts in that field. They want to see, is this thing worthy for us to go out there? Is it scientifically worthy as a research? Does this thing make sense as research? So they begin to ask that question, right? They begin to ask the question as to, is this person reinventing the wheel? What is novel about this research? What is novel about this research? They begin to ask such questions, right? Does this research that this guy is doing now have that non-obviousness? There's something we call non-obviousness. If you want to patent your research, one of the conditions is non-obviousness, meaning that is this thing not obvious to an expert in the field, right? So that should be checked. They begin to ask all of it. Does it have scientific merit? All those questions are asked at that level. After that, the third evaluation is commercial evaluation. They begin to ask, does this thing have industrial application? Who are the players? It's just like you come up with a new cement formula and you want to now go to compete with, your intention is to compete with Dangote in the cement industry. Okay, there's a problem with that, right? So, but then they begin to ask different questions about the commercial viability, economic viability of your research. They do all of those evaluations. They give you a feedback. Afterwards, they will determine whether they need to go on with this process or not. What process are we talking about? Patenting it, protection. That's the next one, protection. You see, we go to protection. We go to protection. Right. Now, it's important to note that from evaluation, you go to, I don't know if the IPTTO is listening to me, but please, I want to give you a simple suggestion. When you take up people's IP, submissions, please do not hold on to them for a long time. Tell them exactly the time you're going to get back to them with the feedback, right? It's very important. Tell them when you're going to get back to them with a feedback. Do not hold on to people's, IP for a long time. So you give them a feedback And then when you give them a feedback, then they go work on those feedback and all that. They come back to you. Why is this important? Because you're going to be the one to protect it. Since the intellectual property belongs to you anyway, it's your duty, it's your responsibility to do what? Protect it. So that protection is done by you. When you have found it what? Viable, a technology. If you do not find it viable, also write to them and tell them that we're not going to go on with this technology to patent it or to protect it. Now, as that is going on, the lecturer is developing it. The lecturer is going ahead to develop this technology, to build it up, to build the intellectual, to do the concept development, product development, and all of that is involved. We're going to come to that in a moment. Now, from there, something happens. They license it or spin out happens. This is the natural course, the natural history for your intellectual property, for your research purposes, especially if you want to go ahead to commercialize it. It's important that you know that once it's out of the IPTCO and is protected, the next thing you want to do is to license it or to create a company out of it. That's what spin out means. Spin out simply means that you're going to build a whole company with this research. I hope I'm clear about that. Spin out means that what? You're going to build a company, an entire company with this research. An entire company with this research. I'm currently working with in fact, I have experiences in this. I'm currently working with an Israeli research team, one of the universities in Israel. So now this is a professor of public health, a medical doctor. They have come up with a technology, and I'm currently kind of helping them to commercialize their research in Nigeria as a spin out. That's why I'm telling you this. This is very possible. It's a spin out, a spin out. Now I'm doing that as a co-founder, right? Now it's going out there as a spin out. The university has its own equity, its own shares of this technology. 15%. That's what the university is taking of this. Now, that's spin out. And currently also, there is a Spanish group, research group in Spain, infectious disease of Barcelona, that I'm helping to commercialize their research in Africa. Nigeria is not actually amongst the 3 countries we are piloting it currently: Mozambique, Gabon, and Ethiopia. The point here is this. This particular company, this particular research is a product of what some pediatrician and guys in that university, in that institute, they are they're currently now what spinning out this particular technology as a company, and they want to make me a CEO of the company. Now, to just what drive it as a company, as an independent company of the university. The university will just take its own shares. It's called spin out. It's called spin out. I strongly believe that more Nigerian researchers should look into spin out. Create a business from your research, but your university, your institutions must be involved in that process. Or should be involved in that process. It's now for the universities to make it convenient for the lecturers, for their researchers to be able to carry them along in this. I've seen many Nigerian lecturers don't disclose their intellectual properties to their universities. They go ahead, do their thing. I blame them. I also don't blame them sometimes, because their universities, first of all, they're not even interested. They're not even interested. They're not even interested. They don't even so much, they don't even care for the most part. I've seen it. They make it so difficult and all that stuff. So it's something I wish more universities would be doing, so that you make a lot of money doing this, really, seriously. Okay, so license. By the way, let me quickly say also, okay, I will say it's under licensing. Licensing is where that you don't go building a business out of the research. You simply package it and then you give it to the industry. You give it to the industry to use it. And they'll be paying you royalties. They'll be paying you the investor royalties. They'll be paying you royalties for simply what? Making use of your technology. Now, this is important. It's called what? It's called licensing. It's called licensing. It's called licensing. I love this a lot because with this, you don't go hustling to create a company, do CAC registration, all those things. No, you simply what? Engage the industry. You simply engage the industry and they go ahead to do what they want to do with your license. Remember, there's a whole lot of things we're not saying about this because this is not the forum. There's no much time for us to delve deep into this. But the point is that you can license your technologies. Also, you can spin it out. What we call spin-offs. Good. Now, but there is another one called fast licensing. Fast licensing is when you go straight on from the school, even without protection, even without getting a patent or developing anything. It moves out from the laboratory to the industry. From the laboratory to the industry, straight on. Straight on. I mean, this happens. It's not always, it's rare. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't always happen, but it's rare, but it happens. It happens. So you want to pay attention to this fast licensing. Fast licensing. This happens more with accelerated research when you involve the industry earlier on in your research. Earlier on in your research, it's possible to achieve that. Okay, so we go, this is the blueprint. This is the process of research commercialization. And for each, from one aspect to the other, from one level to the other, there are a lot of things involved, but just get involved first of all, and then you can ask the right questions. Good. Now, I want to talk about something very important. I'm going to rush through this. But it's important. I cannot finish. I find it difficult to finish talking about research commercialization, even if it's just for 1 hour, without mentioning this. There's something we call innovation readiness levels. Ladies and gentlemen, please put down your questions. I'm going to take your questions. I promise you, I'll take all your questions. But let me finish the content I have. Innovation readiness levels. Now, you're listening to me. You're probably asking the question as to, I'm doing research. I have some research now. I have some minimum viable products now. What's the next step I need to take? I have some prototypes now. What's the next step I need to take? I finished collecting data. I'm coming up with my results soon. What is the next step I need to take? This is probably for you. There are different levels and stages in research commercialization. I want to talk about that now. Because when you identify where you are, it's then clear what next steps you need to take. You need to first of all identify where you are before you can then decide on what next step you have to take. Good. So let's get into it. Innovation readiness level. What is the definition? It refers to the level of maturity and the degree to which an innovation, a research or an invention is ready to be implemented or commercialized. The readiness level of an innovation refers to its level of maturity and the degree to which it is ready to be implemented or commercialized. So don't come to me telling me now about where you are currently and what next step you need to take, because that's what I want to just teach immediately, right? You're going to just know what next step you want to take based on where you are today. There are 4 different dimensions to describe your readiness level without your technology. There are 4 dimensions to it. Number 1 is technology readiness level. Number 2 is commercial readiness level. Number 3 is market readiness level. And number 4 is management readiness level. Now, let's look at technology readiness level. There are 9 levels. Number 1, this is actually not developed by me, it's developed by NASA. The one I developed is the last one, which is management readiness level. But let's look at the first one, which is technology readiness level. Number 1 is what? Concept identified, but not validated by peers. All right. So as a researcher, times come when you develop concepts, but these concepts have not been published. Your peers do not know about it. It's not been found to be something that is tenable to the scientific world. That is technology readiness level 1. Now, 2 is when it is theoretically viable, validated by peers. You have made your publication. People now know that you have this finding, you have these results from your research. It's an amazing place. It is 2, level 2. Level 3 is what? Proof of concept, proof of concept. Here, you can demonstrate analytically and experimentally that your research works. Sometimes you don't actually need to do this when you skip it because prior research efforts have demonstrated already that your results work. They have demonstrated it already. And I want to say something quickly. Someone may be listening to me, hey, I do basic research only, I'm into mathematics, I'm into physics, all those kind of stuff. How do I get involved in research commercialization? Remember, I said what? Demonstrated analytically. So it's not just experimentally, it's just all of that you can do in a workshop. Even if you can demonstrate it analytically, you can tell us that you are at technology readiness level 3. Then you move on to level 4, which is what? Prototyping. Here, basic demonstration of functionality under lab conditions. Basic demonstration of functionality under lab conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a proof of concept, the next logical level is prototype. Prototype. You're able to what? Demonstrate what? Functionality under lab conditions. Level 5, prototyping still, but basic demonstration of functionality under field conditions. This is not now in the lab. You're leaving the lab. If you want to commercialize your research, at some point, you must leave the lab to go demonstrate this thing under field conditions. Then you move on to 6, which is piloting. You now need to pilot this thing because you want to commercialize it. You want to do it. You want to take this thing out there to solve a problem. You want to what? Pilot it. At this point, you're testing full system. You're testing the full system, right, of this technology in a simulated environment first of all. In a simulated environment first of all, before you now go to test it in a real environment. Before you now go to test it in a real environment, right? That is 7 now. Piloting, testing full systems in a real environment. Number 8 is actual production. Actual production of your technology. Actual production of your technology in a simulated environment, right? This is where you now go, do for a particular, car industries, car manufacturers, when they make cars, they make just a couple of cars for a particular state or a particular locality and all of that. Real cars that people will pay money to buy you. Yes, so that it's easy to recall them when they want to recall, in case there are issues, right? Good. Now, finally, is what? Actual production in an actual environment. Actual production in an actual environment. That's the last one. Then let's quickly now go to commercial readiness level. Commercial readiness level talks about the commercial viability of your technology. It's not just about the technology, please. It's not just about the technology. There is a commercial aspect of every technology if you want to really commercialize it and make an impact eventually. There is the commercial aspect to it. That's what we want to look at. Number 1 is what? Basic research. Basic research. Peer research is conducted to establish the feasibility of a concept or technology. That's number 1. Number 2 is what? Apply research. Now, at this point, you want to demonstrate the practical application of a concept or a technology. Is practical application. Please, I know there are people that do a lot of basic research. I argue a lot that basic research is not something we need to do predominantly if you're in Nigeria or if you're in Africa. Because there's only so much you can do in basic research if you're here. Well, where did you see the laboratories to do your basic research or the resources to do that? Leave it for Cambridge, Yale, Stanford, Harvard, all those guys. They have all the resources to do basic research and do it better than you can. That's the truth about it. But you have an unfair advantage in applied research because they don't have the problems. The problems are here. I'm telling you, I've given you now, just sitting here, 2 instances of researchers who have finished doing their research. And the only place they know to apply their research is in Africa because this is where the problems are. We are blessed with the problems. So your research has applications here. So why not just do the one that you have unfair advantage in? It is applied research. It's applied research. Let them do the basic research because they've finished solving most of their problems. They're creating the problems they have now, they are creating new ones, right? They're creating the new problems. But we are still left with the problems we met, our great-great-grandfathers met. So this is where you have to then apply the research. Applied research is what I recommend. It should be 80% of your research efforts. Proof of concept. A prototype or model is developed to demonstrate the technical feasibility of a product or technology. A prototype or model. So here now, proof of concept, we've talked about it. Here you're trying to demonstrate the technical feasibility of a product. Then number 4 is alpha testing. This is where you go ahead to test in a laboratory to verify functionality and identify any technical problems. Please take note of what I'm teaching. What I'm teaching here is that you should now begin to locate yourself. When it comes to technology readiness level dimension, you locate yourself. When it comes to commercial readiness dimension, you locate yourself, right? Now, number 4 is what? Alpha testing. Here is what basically doing this in the laboratory. Doing this, demonstrating functionality, basically. Now, number 5 is what? Beta testing. The product or technology is tested in a real-world environment to validate its performance and identify any usability or reliability issues. You go beyond the laboratory now in the beta test. You want to know if there are what issues with your technology in the use. Number 6 is what? Limited commercial deployment. The product or technology is deployed in a limited capacity. I've giving you instances with the car industry, right? Now, number 7 is what? Full commercial deployment. Full commercial deployment. Then number 8 is what? Continuous improvement. That's the last, continuous improvement, because you don't just deploy, you also keep getting feedback and what? Keep innovating around it. Now let's look at market readiness level. So market readiness level, you're trying to measure the market readiness for your new product. How ready is the market? There is nothing about commercial research commercialization without the market. The market has to be ready. The market has to be ready to absorb this, your research. So let's discuss it. Number 1 is what? Market opportunity identification. Is there an opportunity in the marketplace? Is there an opportunity in the marketplace? Okay, if there is an opportunity in the marketplace, what is the size of the market? And what is the growth potential of the market? What is the size? What is the growth potential? You don't just go doing a research and commercializing it if you have not paid attention to the fact that there is a market and the market is what? Big enough and the market is growing. Very important. The next one is market validation. Market validation, right? The customers, potential customers, eager to use your products? Are they eager to use your product? So you must know how to do market research. In fact, one of the things, the last school I went to do my recap fellowship, that's the 3-day workshop, was OAU. So when I went to OAU, I told them simply, look, you guys have to make market research a compulsory subject for your PhD students. Yeah, market research. Market research, let them take it as a course, as a flat course, everyone that is doing a PhD, unless you're not interested in solving a problem that the market has. students, researchers should know how to do market research. As simple as that. So that's one thing you want to do, to validate market opportunities. Then number 4 is minimum viable product. Deployment of minimum viable product or service that meets the needs of early adopters. I'm going to talk about this later on during the question and answers, early adopters. Now, minimum viable products is very important. At that level, number 4, when you have identified that the market is there, then create something as small enough, with just the primary features of your product. That's what the minimum viable product is. Primary features of your product that is able to solve the problem of your end users, that is able to deliver the promise that you have for your end users. That's it. That's it. Don't put extras. That tiny bit of it is what you need at level 4. Then level 5 is when you can then launch and do early sales, right? Launch it and do early sales to early adapters. Then number 6 is growth. You want to see now that growth is happening, okay? Keep expanding. Then when that all is said and done, you scale it up now. You scale it up, and then finally you dominate the market. This is market research, market readiness level. So you identify where you are along the stages. Excellent. So let's move on to management readiness level. The first one is the principal investigator and research team. This is usually the first level. If you're doing your research and you want to commercialize it, it's usually at this level when you're still with your research team. But right after that, you want to overcome institutional barrier. In some institutions, it's difficult to overcome this level 2. So what people do is they skip it entirely. They just skip it. They just simply skip it because, why do they skip it? They skip it simply because they think that their institution is not ready to absorb them. Their institution is not serious, the institution does not care. So they skip it entirely. Number 3 is the commercial team. I warn you, you are not designed to be a businessman or a businesswoman as a lecturer, as a researcher. You should be able to create a commercial team that should take your intellectual property to the market to commercialize it. Let this sink in. We make this mistake a lot, but if you don't understand it, you can ask a question. Okay, so now, finally, let's discuss funding. Of course, this is a problem. At almost every stage in the commercialization of your research, funding is important. Pursuing a path to market, before you raise any money, please make sure there is need for your seed. Make sure you're not making assumptions. Make sure there is a problem that your technology is supposed to solve, is earmarked to solve. Make sure. Don't go taking money from investors when you have not ascertained this. And make sure it is time for you to go to market. There are technologies that are, it's not yet time. It's not, there's something we call technology life cycle, right? So some technologies are too early for you to commercialize, while some are coming to the party very late. So you have to take note of that. Having said that, let's look at sources of funding. I listed them in order of priority, or in order of the ones you should go for first. Number 1 is bootstrapping. What is bootstrapping? Bootstrapping is where that you fund your research efforts from your pocket. I argue that nobody should give you money for your research commercialization efforts if no amount of money has come out of your own pocket towards that research. Yeah, so I mean, if you have not spent any money in maybe something in registering the company, you want somebody to come and give you money to register the company, maybe you don't believe in it, or you need someone to give you money to maybe just do a prototype of it, right? That is just even maybe simulation or things like that. That will cost you little or nothing. So those ones should tell us that, yeah, you are really interested in doing this. And in some instances where the research is your private research, you should be able to pay for the patent. Be able to pay for the patent yourself. No, number 2 is FFF, what we call family and friends. So you should be able to go get some money from your family and friends. But that comes after you have also invested a little bit of your own funds. Of course, we know that sometimes our friends and our families do not have money to give to us. But when you do have buoyant friends and family, it's always wonderful to engage them, to have them fund or invest in your research efforts, research commercialization efforts. Let them buy shares. Let them be the first people to invest in your technology. Then the last one is foods. Let's not talk about it tonight. Now, number 3 is grants. Grants. Now, why is this important? Lecturers like grants a lot. Lecturers like grants a lot. But I always tell you that grants will not make you rich. You see, you hardly see somebody that says, hey, I won so much grants that I became rich from the grants. It's so anyone that will give you grants to the extent that will make you rich, that person also has the capacity to monitor you crazily to make sure that you use the money for what it's meant for. When they don't monitor you that much, then that money is not, you're actually not supposed to use the money to become rich. You're supposed to use the money for the purpose it's given to you. That's what is ethical. And then that then cannot make you rich, right? So what would make you rich actually is not the money from funding organizations, from research organizations. So from grants organizations. That's not the money that will make you rich. We'll come to the money that will make you rich, but it's not the money from them. You should use the money from them to move your research from technology readiness level 1 to technology readiness level 7. 7. When you get there, then you're a smart researcher. You're a smart researcher. This is what the grants should help you do. Number 4 is angel investors. Angel investors is coming to the point where you can now begin to become rich. The angel investors are now going to give you money that can now make you rich. They'll give you money to fund your research from technology readiness level 7 upwards, right? Now, who are angel investors? Angel investors are individual, high net worth individuals that have the money to invest in what businesses. They invest in businesses they're interested in. These are angel investors. Now you have customers. Customers, by the time you have some money from angel investors, you can now start getting some money from customers with the first launch you have made of your product. But that money is not even so significant. The money customers will give you not so significant. What is more important is the data you get from customers. The data you're going to get from customers to show that they actually want your product. You gather all that data. You use it to now get to the number 6, which is venture capital firms. These are the people that have the money that will make you super rich. If you're a lecturer and you have won a venture capital's money, you are so rich. Now, these are the people that invest in millions of dollars. They don't invest in maybe 10 million, 5 million, all those things. That's small money. That's small money, 50 million, maybe in Nigeria. But these are the guys that have too much money to now give you. The money is not actually, the people you're going to interface are the managers of the money. The idea is that they give you so much money for you to now scale this thing, to a point where they will make their money after 5 years in multiples. So this is the destination I wish all of you with your technologies. That's the destination. Good. Now, there's a whole lot of things that we cannot cover in this section. Of course, I just wanted to rush to make sure I don't exceed 90 minutes as promised, so that we can now use questions for the rest of the evening. Okay, so I know you have many questions, but I'm going to start with the questions that people sent to me to my WhatsApp, because I did ask you to send me questions, and then so that I can okay, give me 1 second. Let me look at those questions. Okay, so someone asked the question. I said, let me just quickly read through the question. Thank you so much, Obichi, for your kind gesture. The person said their name, said, I am an innovator and an inventor in University of Cross River State. Innovating and inventing are very capital intensive, particularly when the researcher intends to achieve a quality finishing that makes the prototype sellable. However, one of the challenges innovators and inventors face in Nigeria is access to funding. While the primary option is personal funds, in brackets says that no one will commit their funds to something they cannot see to be successful. What is often needed is well beyond the capacity of the researcher. In your experience, are there possibilities in Nigeria for innovators and inventors to draw funding for viable products prototyping? Very good question, sir. Very good question, sir. Okay, let me just answer it straight to the point. A number of things. Number one is that you are not expected to fund your research commercialization efforts from your pocket. I put it number one, not because it's something that should sustain it. No way. You should put in something, but it shouldn't be the major thing. You shouldn't sustain that effort at all. Okay? Because if you're the only one that believes in your own research, then you don't have a research. All right? If you're the only one that believes in that your idea, then you don't have an idea to start with. I'm just saying that you should put in something to at least to drive it, to get it started, not that you should fund it with your money. That's one. Number two, you're asking that is it possible for you to get funding to now do this thing, to prototyping and all that? Why not? Why not? Why not? Remember, in fact, that's the last thing I addressed, right? I talked about grants. Grants, that's the third level. After you have explored your own pocket and explored family and friends, grants. If, as a researcher, this is something you should know how to do. I told you about the research group I'm part of in Spain. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth is that we are applying for Horizon Europe. Some of you should know about Horizon Europe. If you don't know, Google it, please. Google it. No Nigerian assets last year, no Nigerian researcher has won Horizon Europe grant. No Nigerian researcher has won Horizon Europe. I don't know about now, but as a last year, no Nigerian. And this is, some South Africans have won it, but no Nigerian has won it. Now, I'm telling you this so that you Google it and you'll be part of it. The Spanish team I'm part of, we are this final stage now of this Horizon Europe grant. And guess how much we are seeking to be able to now drive our technology to technology readiness level 7 and move it to market. It's 4.9 million euros. 4.9 million euros. Horizon Europe will give you up to 5 million euros. You see what I'm talking about? With that kind of money, you don't have a problem with prototyping your this thing, right? You don't. So look for the grant opportunities. If I'm going too far to Europe, what about TED Funds NRF? Sir, go for TED Fund NRF. go for it. Go for it. There are secrets to winning that grant. Once you have the tools, win the grant. You have upwards of 30 million naira to do. I don't know if you have a prototype that is going to take you more than 30 million naira to do. Maybe you should rethink it. Right. So I don't know. There are grants out there. Go for them. Go for them. That's what I have to say. I don't expect you to take money from an investor to do a prototype. But once you have a prototype and you have, done piloting even if it's just piloting in a simulated environment, then you need an angel investor's money to now take it forward at that level. That's from level 6 upward. Okay, I think I have answered the question. Let me go to the next question. Hold on, please, guys. Sorry. Okay. So somebody said, how can I get investors to sponsor a research? Yes, the first thing is that you need to know where you are. I already assessed it. I told you in different levels. You need to assess the level where you are currently. You need to know where you are currently. And the next stage you need to go. After you know that, then you need to do what? Understand how to communicate your research in a way that investors will be glued to it. Understand how to communicate your research. The problem why some investors will not look your way is because you're not solving a problem that matters. Because you are doing supply-driven research. You didn't do demand-driven, because if you did demand-driven, you would have found a problem that is worth solving. There are 10 characteristics of a good problem that you should do your research on. I'm not going to go into that because of time, but what I'm telling you is that if you started by identifying a good problem to solve and you solved it, then an investor will look your direction. But some of you just start from your research. When you now finish your research, you now say, this thing can go to the market. You now start what? But sometimes you first of all need to understand the market, understand the size of the market, and understand that this market is growing. Then understand the problem they have as non-consumers and begin to build your research around that. That way, investors will be pursuing you. That's the truth about it. So oftentimes we make that mistake of finishing our research. The output of your research may not be interesting for a market that for an investor. So that's the problem there. Okay. So someone said, good evening once more, sir. I was going to ask about the role of the Nigerian government in encouraging indigenous research-based innovations. It is common practice in other climes to see government involvement in promoting indigenous technology by patronizing and creating an enabling environment for such technology to thrive. But the opposite is obtainable in Nigeria by encouraging and relying on foreign products as superior to indigenous. How can this be discouraged? Thank you for this question. Now, as I was starting this presentation, I highlighted that the government has a role to play. That's, that is granted. The government has a role to play, is a given. Yes, the government has a role to play. However, you have a role to play also, right? The government will not close the borders completely so that now your products that is indigenous will thrive. That's not really the way the market works. See how it's done. You need to understand that, first of all, with your technology, you define the market you're interested in. Time will fail me to start categorizing markets for you. There's something called total addressable markets. Then there's something called serviceable addressable market. Then there's something called total total addressable market, serviceable addressable market, and serviceable obtainable market. There is the market you can obtain. There is the market that is there to be addressed. But the one you can obtain, you need to identify it first of all and focus on it. And let me tell you something. The one you can obtain as an innovator with a new product is just about 13.5% of the market. 13.5 to about 15% of the market. That is all that is meant for you. And you will agree with me, sincerely speaking, that that market exists. It's for you to find them and sell your product to them. You're not now going to start competing. There are people that are ready to take up your own product the way it is, that is not so completely finished. Find that number of people. They may just be about 2,000 of them in the whole of Cross River State. In the whole of Cross River State. Sell your product to just about 1,000 of those people. When you sell to just 1,000 of those people, those 1,000 are all that you need. When you sell to these 1,000 people, they'll give you feedback. They'll give you feedback on what you need to improve and all of that. Now, these are the people that will now move it on to the next 15% of the market. These are the people that are moving on to the next 15%, to the next 30%. It's those innovators and early adapters. They are the ones, not you now. And you know the shocking thing? They will give you the data that you now require to go and get money from angel investors and from venture capital firms. Don't bother yourself so much about completely finishing your product and all of that before you hit the market. That is not the idea. The idea is identify who your target audience is and focus on them. I agree that the government has a role to play, but I think you have more role to play in that sense. Okay, now I think I've answered the questions that they sent me. Let's now go to the charts. Permit me to start from the beginning. Okay. Then I'll ask people to raise their hands and ask, but let me just see the. Okay, so Dr. Joseph wrote, said there is a model IP policy for Nigerian universities by NUC and Committee of Vice Chancellors. We are adapting it to Unicross. Draft is almost ready for management and Senate consideration. Thank you, sir. I know about this draft IP policy, but what I will advise you is for you to look at it from the lenses of research commercialization. That's all I have to say, and adapt it accordingly. Then the next one is, okay. It's better to identify a problem than plan a research survey. Yes, thank you for saying that. Okay. Okay, let me see. Research products from Israel. Okay. In a situation where the university play no role, provides no money to fund it, how can it get a share? Well, so that's the issue, right? There are all those things, but the truth about it is that if is the university that has employed you and you signed it, during your engagement, that the outcome of your research belongs to the university and all of that stuff. You're going to use the university's, your full-time employed. So you're using the university's time for that your research. You're using the university's laboratory and everything for that your research. So that's why the university has already invested indirectly to that your research. I don't know if that answers your question. I have some questions. Okay. Let me quickly. How can we deal with problems of inertia of disclosures by staff with innovations? Yes, sir. The way you can deal with that is by communicating and showing Excuse me. Okay, sorry. So the way you can deal with that is by communicating to your staff that you are now serious. It's by awareness that you're now serious to get into the job of supporting them with their research. It's just simply awareness. Let them see, because they can't do it on their own. They cannot do it on their own. They need you. They need you. So their failure will be so much without you on board, right? So that is why you need to tell them that you're now ready, that you have the resources to support them, right? You have the resources to support them. You have the resources to support them. And what are those resources? You're able to help them get the patents as at when you fast track the process and all of that. You're able to help them connect to the industries. You're able to help them evaluate, bringing consultants like us to look into what they have done and all that stuff. It is the way. They are the ones that will be pursuing you, really, if you prove to them that you have this, what it takes to support their efforts. What grants are available in Nigeria? I think I should ask you that. But the best so far I've seen is the NRF. The research product, okay, I think we've seen this. Thank you, dear presenter. Please, how can university researchers overcome the problem of non-readiness of institutions in funding staff research works, but rather most institutions are only interested in taking over the product? Yes. Actually, I think what the your institutions don't have money to fund, right? That's the truth. I mean, it's clear. They don't have the money to fund. They don't even really have the money to fund workshops such as this, really. That's the truth. Now, I'm doing this pro bono, right? I know how difficult it is for universities to bring out money to train you on how to commercialize your research. It's difficult. They don't even have that money. Not to now talk of giving you that money for your research. Difficult, I can tell you that. That is why they even need you to commercialize, so that they start making money from your royalties and from your businesses. Good. But the point now is this. That is why I told Dr. Joe to look into that prototype IP policy they've gotten from NUC. The truth about it is this: universities must be smart about the IP policies. They must be smart about commercialization of intellectual properties, because they know they are not giving it so much directly to these lecturers who themselves are already suffering for conditions of service and everything. We don't need to talk about it. Then all of a sudden you want to come and grab a lot of ownership of what they have. It's not fair. You just simply discourage these guys. Go and look into your IP policy and make it realistic. That's all I have to say. Most of our peers were in the meeting room in Google Meets. Oh my God. Sorry about that. You're going to get the recording of this. Sorry about that. We had to, because if we're on Google Meet, it would be difficult. We wouldn't be able to record and all that. So that's why we had to move. Okay, I think I'm now going to. Okay. Some people asked. Let me answer these 5 questions, then I'll open up the floor. How do we address challenges of poor technology transfer infrastructures in our university system? Okay, I think. Okay, let me just answer this quickly, then I open up. Sorry. How do we address the challenges of poor technology transfer infrastructures in our university system? I've talked about it already. First of all, you must be sincere and authentic about how poor it is. That is the university now, and begin to pay attention to it. Most universities don't pay attention to this thing I'm talking about. This research commercialization thing, most universities, first of all, they don't even know to what extent this important this is. Most universities I go to, their IPTTO office is just where 2 or 3 are gathered. No IP lawyers I mean, what are you talking about? So what they should do if they are serious, you know that I think nobody has told them the real deal in this thing. This is where the money is. And for the sustainability and for the future of the university, this is long-term strategy of the university. This is where it is. This is where it is. So when you engage, people that know what they're doing, they can help you and help structure these things. What I do is technology transfer. And you need to build the infrastructure. And it takes commitment to do that. So I believe your university is going to jump onto this and to take, because they're already thinking about getting you to have this knowledge. So I believe they would work on that. How can we stimulate the supply-driven innovation that can stimulate our research commercialization objective? Yeah, I think I don't understand the question, but that's what you've already been doing. Why is the demand approach more resourceful than the supply? I've talked about it. It's because you're focusing on the customers and it's more effective. How do we sustainably and strategically engage the industry as a measure? How do you sustainably and strategically engage the industry? It's beyond the scope of this workshop now. In another opportunity or occasion, I will share a lot of other insights into how you can now begin to engage the industry. But the truth about it is that you have to be proactive. Go out there and reach out to the industry. Go out there. There are templates about it. So there is what I teach. There is the horizontal mapping you can do, and there is the vertical mapping you can do, depending on the kind of technology you're bringing on board. But the truth is that you should leave your office. You should leave the laboratory. Go out there and find out the problem that the industry has. Build your research questions around it, and then engage them actively. How do you turn your research to a product with reference to your discussion on prototypes? Yes. If your idea is to eventually get this thing into the hands of end users, remember, I've talked about what? Licensing, spin out, and fast licensing. So it's for you to now decide, okay, I want to go the licensing route. That way, you're not thinking about any product. The industry takes it and does what they want to do with it. Then there is the spin out approach, where that you have to build the whole company, and then develop your product. That is, develop your product is as simple as that. Yeah. So it depends on the context and the particular technology you have, but this is a generic response to that. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to open this up now. Let me take maybe 3-4 questions, and then let me open it up. Okay, I think you can unmute now and ask your questions, please. So maybe you raise your hand, right? So let's make it orderly, right? So Pashis Olga.
Yeah.
Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking, please. Thank you.
Am I being audible?
Very audible, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for a wonderful lecture. My lecture is apparently on the funding section of your presentation. However, yes, you've addressed 5 of my questions I've earlier dropped on the chat section. The question that has to do with the other in terms of financing that has to do with angel investors.
Go ahead, sir.
The angel investors, we know that usually they always require you to do a feasibility study and sometimes present a business model in terms of a business model canvas on how you intend to go about the entire research, and even in the terms of commercializing the product or prototype that may be generated from your product. My question is, what happens when the assessment is considered biased? Because most times we encounter challenges when, of course, you've done your feasibility study, you present a report, and maybe your assessor or your funding agency begin to consider maybe in their context is not in line with their expectation in terms of innovation. And though it is apparently sustainable in the long run, but maybe in the short run, the short run benefit may not be as considerable as expected. And this could impair the funding opportunity. What do you do when such circumstances present themselves?
Thank you, sir. So it's a good question. It's a good question. So the point there is that you don't have the money. The person that has the money determines who they'll fund. If they think that your research or your product doesn't have commercial viability, they will not fund it. They will not fund it because they have other better things to do with the money. They will not fund it. So now the question is for you to go all out to, first of all, do your due diligence and identify the right investors to talk to. That's the problem. It's not every investor you talk to. First of all, you want to talk to the investors that are interested in the industry that you have done your research. These angel investors hardly invest everywhere. There are specific industries they focus on. Now, you want to go to such people, right? So do your due so that you don't waste your time. That is one. Second is that there are things they look out for. While your idea may not be the best at the point you're pitching it, they know that the ideas can change. That's not the first thing they look into. They look at your team. There are other parameters they look at, right? So, but the short answer to your question is this. If an investor says that I'm not going to invest, move on to the next investor. In fact, for you to get funding, you're supposed to reach out to not less than 50 investors. And up to these 50 investors, just about maybe 5 would call you. And maybe 1 would then invest in you. And that one that is interested in investing in you is going to now help you reach out to other ones that they are their friends or that they invest in rounds of investment, right? So they come and then invest in you. So that is the point. If someone says no, you move on to the next. Let that not discourage you in any way at all. Move on to the next person. Good. I believe I answered your question. George, please.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, and thank you for this robust lecture. Please, I want to ask, how do you protect your intellectual property if you are towing the line of fast licensing? Because from the model you presented, if you are going fast licensing, you are like bypassing protection.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you for that question. In fast licensing, you're not even protecting it. So it's not a question of how do you protect it. You don't even need to protect it because the industry is taking it out completely from you and paying you off. And, it's now their headache to go and protect it. And that's an interesting model, actually. Now, what happens is that they are going to meet you at the point when you have not finished your research, or when you just still have the preliminary result. There's nothing to protect at that point. They're interested in it. They probably even gave you the assignment, the research, stuff you're doing. So they're taking it at that point. And now they're going to discuss royalties with you. Not that you're going to give it to them for free. They're discussing royalties with you. They will then take up the responsibility of seeing what they need to have patents. Guys, can we mute? Okay, let me mute everybody. Yes, so that's the interesting thing about fast licensing, right? So I give you an example. There was I was conducting a training at some point, and this professor from one of the universities was in that training. He went out to pick a call, came into the classroom again, and he was just flexing his muscles, right in the workshop on research commercialization. Then I asked him, Prof, what is this one that is making you so happy? He told me that, look, he told the class that, look, Mobil, ExxonMobil, right? That's what the company is called, right? ExxonMobil had just given him a call. They have just accepted their proposal. So apparently one of his research PhD students was doing a research on this remediation, soil remediation stuff. He's a professor of microbiology. Now, they wrote a proposal, to ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil, their technology on soil remediation is more cost effective than what obtains today. From what obtains today, it's more. So this research is still at that, level, is still in the lab and all of that. The guy has not finished his PhD, is at that level. The company engaged them to now complete the research with ExxonMobil. That's it. And this is a contract for 8 years. 8 years. Because that the truth is that there's only so much they would do or they can do from the university. But with this company now, they will go all out, use the best instruments and equipment and lab, whatever, to do, and then go even to the field. That is called accelerated research. That is actually that fast license. They're simply licensing that wherever it is now based on whatever times and negotiations they're going to reach. What the company is going to be giving to the university from whatever thing obtains from this and all of that. So that is that fast licensing process. Now, eventually, the company would own the intellectual property and will be giving royalties to the institution.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Okay. I still have one hand up. Who is that? Okay, so I think it was George. All right. So any other questions? We don't have questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to thank you. Okay, so I think there's a question, but I can't hear it. So I don't know if it's a general problem. Sorry. Okay, I think. Please, how can one's idea send to TED Fund to access funding info of? Okay, how can your idea be preserved from be preserved from being hijacked by your assessor? Okay, what an interesting question. How can your idea be preserved from being hijacked by your assessor? Well, so people have oftentimes asked me this question. The truth about it is that if your idea is such that anybody can just, hijack and run with it, I think that there's a problem. I don't believe in. So ideas are worth nothing, first of all. And I'm glad you used the word ideas. Ideas are worth nothing. What matters is the execution of the idea. Execution of the idea. That is one point I have made. Number two is that your idea should be such that it will take, someone will not just look at it and would hijack it, right? No, someone should not just look at it. It should have that non-obviousness. So however, if this person is an expert in the field, that's why you're a smart person. That's why you should first of all go and patent it very quickly before probably sending it to, TED Fund. You patent it. That's one way to protect it. If it's such that an expert in the field can, clone it. The third thing is that is actually now directed to the IPTTO of your institution to quickly support you in protecting ideas that have high potential before they move on to, such external people. But I strongly believe that that should not be so much of a concern to you if you understand intellectual property rights also. And it's not there when you should also be technical and tactical in presenting your research ideas out there. Should be tactical about what to push out there and what to not push out there. This is a sensitive conversation, and it varies and it depends. I've seen people that they don't apply for anything because they think that someone is going to steal their idea. So I tell them, why not just go and protect it so that you can freely apply for grant? Because if it still stays with you, you cannot do anything with it. All right, sir. Please, sir. Dr. Joe, go ahead, sir.
I just simply want to disabuse the minds of those who feel that when they submit their works through official channels for maybe any assessment, that such can be easily maybe hijacked. It's not possible. For instance, when we take documents to TED Fund, there are evidences that those documents have gone through those channels. And if anything happens afterwards, you can call them to order. So I'm saying this because that's why I even asked the question of that inertia. You are saying that you don't want to disclose because you feel maybe the university might also benefit from your idea. The university that employed you. Then you keep your idea or whatever innovation there in the cooler. Nothing is done about it. Which is better? That you even have something that even if the university is earning everything, which is not the case, but your name will remain there as the inventor, like you rightly said from the beginning, or have something in your box or your shelf until you read in maybe patent databases that those things have already been patented by some other people. So the do nothing option does not obtain in this, because we lose everything. We lose completely when we don't make even the effort to patent. When you are making a patent, you mention the issue of disclosure. You will disclose. So if we have this feeling, fear, this fear of the unknown that, oh, they will steal from me, then how are you even going to be able to do patents? A procedure for patenting requires disclosure, for which if you don't, you cannot even get a patent. So I need to disabuse the minds of our colleagues that patenting is a major step to your commercialization effort. And if you don't patent your work, I don't know how else we can make progress in an institution where people are too reluctant to patent what is there, just because they feel the university has not contributed anything. But the university employ them. They use university facilities, for their research to some extent and all that. So please, it's important for people to understand that they need to be forward-looking, more forward-looking and open-minded, so that they can make progress and benefit from this commercialization thing. Otherwise, it will just end in lectures and we cannot have it practiced. I know how many people I've had to talk to personally. You need to come forward. You need to come forward. And we have in the intellectual property thing that we are adapting. We're not just like adapting, everything as it is. We are bringing our own university unique, issues like sharing formulas and all those kind of stuff. We're putting it to the table so that people feel encouraged that this is what is on the table. If I do this, this is what I get. From the beginning, we're trying to put that in the policy. So it's coming out. It's okay. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that is even, to add to that, even if you want to publish it, it will still go out there, So if it's an idea, don't be afraid. It's about the execution that really matters. And then you go ahead and patent it and have it protected anyway. But there are issues around that, which, this is not the forum for us to get into. Let me take questions from Felix.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Trainer and director, everybody. Okay, I want to join from the angle of disabusing our minds of this stealing of intellectual property. I think it's a mindset thing. Mindset in the sense that I would want us to, let me say, mindset of sole proprietorship. Mindset of sole proprietorship. And I would want to let our people know that even business in itself of today is actually moving from that sole proprietorship to partnership. Partnership in the sense that listening to the trainer, he talked about marketing, he talked about different aspects of business, how you can do all those feasibility, all those things. You may have the technical knowledge, but you may not have that marketing knowledge. And the situation where you have the technical aspect of it, you are partnering with somebody who is very good in the marketing aspect of it. Even you may have the conceptual knowledge of what you want to do, but you don't have the technical knowledge. You see yourself partnering with somebody who have one skill and another skill, and even partnering with an institution. I think it should be a plus, because you may think your perspective of that idea is all there is. But the truth of the matter is that partnering with an institution too, with its own organogram that could look into that paper or that idea, may move around it and even push it to the level where you as an individual wouldn't have been able to push it. So I think that mindset of sole proprietorship is my own and my own and my own. We should begin to lose it. It doesn't reign again in the business world. We are talking about partnership today. And I think that is just what I want to say. Thank you, director and trainer, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, Felix.
Felix had just spoken.
Oh, is that Felix? Okay, there was someone
Yes.
else that had their hand up, and I lowered it. I thought it was Felix. Okay, so okay, in case you wanted to speak and I lowered your hand, please, you can go ahead now, please. Okay, maybe your question has been answered anyway. Okay, Friday, yes, Friday, please go ahead. You may unmute yourself, please. Unmute, you're muted. Okay, all right, so because of time, I think we're going to end it here. For me, it's about making the decision to make something out of your research. There is no gain to dwell only on publications. Publications alone will not earn you much in the long term. You may get promoted and all of that, but that's not sufficient, because actually, when you go into commercialization of your research, you will then have some real interesting data to publish as well. So why not just lead that direction? So I would encourage every one of you to start on that journey. If you want to get to know more, of course, 90 minutes is not enough. It's not sufficient at all for us to cover all we need to cover. If we pointed out that there is a lot of mindset issue that is involved in this thing, that is keeping us back in commercializing our research. For you to overcome that, you need information, you need knowledge. And I encourage you guys to keep subscribe to the newsletter. I have a newsletter I push out for. So I'm going to drop the link in the WhatsApp group. If you're not part of the WhatsApp group, kindly also join. Then you guys will be getting that. And then also I would share some YouTube videos. This particular video is going to go on YouTube. So you can take the recording there. And then I'm going to also share some links of some other classes I've held in the past that will definitely help you to move on with your research commercialization efforts. And if you would have any question at any time, feel free to also contact me, and I'll be glad to support. Before and someone just raised up their hand now, Jack Chinedu, do you want to quickly ask your question?
All right. Good evening, Mr. Trainer. Good evening, directors, esteemed professors in the house, and my fellow colleagues. It's actually a privilege to be part of this meeting, and I commend you for the impact so far. It was quite imparting. Thank you very much. Please, there are a few challenges I think that is hindering us from commercialization of our work. Part of those challenges is the aspect of funding. Like when it comes to engineering, if you are to do a research project that will lead to commercialization, you find out that you need to do a lot of prototyping, and all of those prototyping costs money. And sometimes the students are still struggling to even pay up their school fees and even take care of themselves. So if there is any way you can also throw light on the aspect of funding, if we have sufficient funding for our research, I don't think there is any reason why anybody wouldn't want to go into commercialization of our work. Then on the aspect of patents and all that, I think more light need to be thrown both in the classroom so that some students can be able to understand their rights. Because I was privileged to help a colleague of mine who is in Malaysia to commercialize his work. And I found out that before the commercialization, there was a partnership agreement that the university reached out to this guy, and they signed the document, which he even forwarded some of this thing for me to help him proofread and throw my own lights. So when I went through it, I found out that there was a lot of benefits that is accrued to the guy. I asked him to go ahead and do it. That if he's to push that project alone, he will not be able to enter the market. And today, that product is in the market. His inverter is in the market today, even in Nigeria, so to speak. So is actually a very good information or training, and we are getting it. But there is need for us to also, for you, the trainers, to acquaint us with the aspect of funding, how to access funding. We have limitations in accessing funds for research in Nigeria. And that's all hinder the students from going into detail of his projects. Thank you. That is the aspect I want to contribute, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir. Yes, of course, that's correct. Funding is always an issue. I highlighted that earlier in my presentation. The thing is that it all depends. It comes with a lot of technicalities. Sometimes you have the idea, but you do not know how to get the funding. That is it, because you're not trained in getting funding. That is it. Either grants or communicating your research to investors, or even finding the investors. Where are the investors? Where are they? Even to be able to find them and communicate. There is a whole process, format to discussing your technology with an investor, because they are not scientists, so to speak. They have money. They're interested in making profit by the end of the day. So you need to be able to speak to them the right way to convince them. So that whole thing needs to be the process. And that's where having a team or a commercial team becomes important, because then there are guys that will take up that your idea. Before you know it, they have the funding that you require. Yes. So that is something you need to know. about, you may not have what it takes to go pursuing investors, but you can engage a team, a strong team that will make that happen. Yes. Okay, so that is on that. Then yes, on intellectual property, I think is something that we keep talking about, and to make sure that everybody gets to understand it. Everybody gets to understand it. There is always a place for the lecturer, especially when you have students, for you to take time to explain to your students what intellectual property means and how that they can benefit from whatever that comes out of the process. I wish that our institutions would be more out there, more very useful when it comes to research commercialization than they are today. I know what I'm talking about. It's not been, from what I see, the institutions need to rise up to the occasion, and I'm glad that University of Cross River is actually active. But I'm not surprised. Dr. Joseph has been to R4I program, so we make sure that we emphasize the importance of that. So this is to encourage all of you. Thank you so much for having me. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm glad we have a WhatsApp group now. So if you're not part of the WhatsApp group, kindly join. We keep sharing materials there and information that will be very useful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Joe. And thank you for the sacrifices for keeping vigil to make sure that this program.
Thank you so much. I was looking forward to it. There's no way I would sleep at all. Thank you so very much. Thank you, our Vice Chancellor, who has been here. I think he's still here, I guess. We need to bring it to a close. A whole lot of questions that somebody was asking about, funding is another big lecture altogether. And hopefully we have now, as a university, established a formal relationship with you. So hopefully new topics or other topics that are not, that are still burning in the hearts of our colleagues can be dealt with in maybe subsequent presentations. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for the sacrifice you have made pro bono. Thank you so very much.
It's my pleasure.
For those who still have questions, that WhatsApp platform has been opened. So we can still discuss these subjects over there, and we can find responses from him as a guest. He's usually very, very, very busy. They keep training people from all over the country in their Innovate Center, and he's always the lead trainer. But I think somehow he has a way of finding time to still respond to messages. So if we put our questions, if there are still additional questions, we can put on that platform. And I believe certainly he will answer. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.